So this NOAH conference for us is not only the 6th conference, it's the first one where we managed to get a UK minister to join us, and it's also the first time where I got my personal idol to join us. Mr. Döpfner is the CEO of Axel Springer. He's from Hamburg. My father did his journalist apprenticeship at Axel Springer, and he was in charge for the Kiez report. The Kiez is the German word for Reeperbahn, and it's the red light district in Hamburg. And I personally have a very, very close connection with Axel Springer. I used to work next to your Hamburg headquarters, Arnold Herz, and always look down. So first of all, thank you very, very much joining us. And I understand that my internet-heavy job is getting closer and closer to Axel Springer. You're not really anymore the media company my father used to work at. Tell us, what is Axel Springer today?
Well, you know, Axel Springer used to be a content company and still is a content company, but in former times it was based on magazines and newspapers as distribution devices, and today it's a digital publisher. Our goal is to become the leading digital publisher, so it's very clear that publishing, journalism, content is in the center, is the fundament of the company. But nevertheless, we are in the digital world monetizing our core competence, the journalism, with the 3 revenue sources that we used to have in the analog world, and that is the paying reader, the paying advertising client, and the paying classified advertising client. And with that, we have created a company that is today generating more than 50% of its revenues with digital businesses, 70% of its operating profit, of its EBITDA with digital business, and 75% of our advertising revenues are coming from digital businesses.
So 75% of your EBITDA is coming from?
70% of the EBITDA and 75% of advertising revenues. Yeah.
So you're an internet company now?
Well, yeah, I think we are a company that is driven by digital business and that is creating its growth with the digital business, and we are absolutely optimistic that for a publisher, the digital world is providing tremendous opportunities, and the company will be a lot more successful and bigger in a couple of years from now, since we have still a lot of homework to do. I mean, we are well positioned. We may be in the pole position among the traditional publishers, but we are now facing totally new competitors and competitive environments, and we are motivated to win that race.
So from all the publishers in Europe, there's only one I can think of which had similar success online, which is Schibsted. But Schibsted started much earlier, so for the ones who start later to take market share in the online world, it must be much harder. You had a little deviation, I would say, because you were trying to buy Germany's largest TV network, ProSieben. Are you happy the deal didn't go through?
No, I think it's so easy to say retrospect, oh, was good that it didn't happen. No, of course it would have been a great deal. And can you imagine how we could have developed the digitization with access not only to written content but also to video content, which is so extremely important these days. So honestly speaking, I still think it's a pity that it didn't got approval. It was a great deal. But on the other hand, we have been forced now to produce our own video content and go the organic way to launch that, and step by step we are getting to the same end result, and that is a digital publisher that of course needs products that are in a very, very sophisticated way combining all categories of content, and video is super important.
And interesting, your friends from Munich have also developed themselves quite far and became, yeah, I think one of the most innovative free TV provider in Europe, of having very innovative business models.
Yeah, they're doing a great job.
And I think the success of Axel Springer is a combination of, okay, you have done some great M&A, Idealo, Celoger, etc., Yachtstein, but of course you have also changed the core business, and I think that's much harder to change. You talked about we are the content business, I mean, it's easy to sell a newspaper for like €1 or €2, but then when you have the internet, it's very hard to charge for just the consumed media. And in the US, there's these Huffington Post and others who are trying to be competitive in the online journalism world. Tell us, how is like Bill doing it? I mean, do you have online-only subscriber? I mean, is there a financial viable world for journalism online? Do you see that the numbers work?
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, we have profitable digital businesses with advertising revenues only. Bild.de and Welt.de are two, in a way, traditional brands that have been digitized, and Bild is now today reaching 17 million uniques, and with that is the biggest general interest brand. And it used to be profitable with advertising revenues only, but it needs in the long run, in order to entertain a healthy competitive environment and have several players and not only one or two quasi-monopolies, it needs access to revenue sources. That is absolutely crucial, and we have made very positive experiences. We have moved Bild.de into a freemium model where if you want to have access to certain categories and qualities of content, you have to subscribe. And we have today almost 300, to be precise, 296,000 paying subscribers in a little more than a year. I think that is extremely encouraging, particularly if you take into account that we are basically in an environment where most of the digital and analog brands are offering their content for free, which I think is a mistake and is going to be, and that is going to change in the next years. I'm deeply convinced that in 5 to 7 years we will have a world where you have parts of digital content that are still available for free. That's commodity content, wire service content, just news as something that is available everywhere. But the quality content, the sophisticated content, service-oriented models, added value content, that is going to be a pay model. And I'm so optimistic not only because I see developments in a lot of traditional publishing companies, but there are so many digital-only content brands that are step-by-step preparing pay or partial pay models. And I think that is going to be in the interest of the consumer in the long run.
With so much content offered by free, paid, online, offline, do people read more than before?
Yeah, they read more. They read more and they read more online. I mean, that is absolutely clear. And I don't see any reason why digital journalism or digital content should be weaker or more superficial or less interesting than printed content. I think that the digital distribution outlets are simply the more attractive proposal for the consumer, and there will be new generations of reading devices. Today we think that the smartphones or the tablets are the ultimate reading device. I think in a couple of years from now we will have foldables, we will have electronic paper that looks almost exactly like analog paper as we know it, and everybody will have it. It's a commodity, and then the only distinguishing factor is who has the best content, and is there really something that people want and need to read or that people want to be entertained by? And for that reason, I think the younger generation is almost 100% consuming news and entertainment on digital devices. That's the future, so we have to embrace that.
When you transformed Axel Springer, I mean, I'm sure it wasn't easy to convince the French to sell to a German media company or to acquire businesses where you had strong competitors in these processes. But how was it internally? Because you always had a bit of a conflict of interest. You had a classified real estate team in print, and then you had Immonet. I mean, how did you manage to take the entire organization towards a digital?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, when I started, or before I started, I wrote a text and I said for a media company there are only 3 priorities. First is internet, second is internet, third is internet. And then they thought this guy's crazy, he's going to ruin the company. And it was very difficult at the beginning.
When was that? When did you write that?
That was in 2000, and I became CEO in 2002. So there was a lot of skepticism at the beginning. And I'd say a clear majority in the company was against that. But then I think we have implemented this transformation strategy based on 3 principles and 3, I would say from a today's perspective, success factors. That was 1, no fear of self-cannibalization, because you get cannibalized anyway, so it's better to cannibalize yourself than being cannibalized by others. It sounds so easy, but it was tough because, as you say, the classified ad business in print was, of course, disrupted by the digital classified business. But we said this is something that we definitely need to do. The second principle was no silos. Usually, media companies said 10 years ago, 15 years ago, well, we have to separate the digital guys from the analog guys. It's a different world. They speak a different language. Let's not bring them together. What that does in a company creates winners and losers. 80 or 90% losers who have to defend the dying print business, 10% winners who are shaping the growth business. We said this is not going to work. We have to bring them together and have to build integrated teams with one guy on top who is in charge of both, digital and analog. That was a very tough thing at the beginning, but in the end it worked much better because everybody today is motivated to get this digital transformation done. And then the third principle, and perhaps that is among the principles the most important and the most contrarian one, we said no integration in the classical sense. So for everything that we bought, we said the most important thing is that this company, this startup, has to keep its very, very own individual culture and way how to run things.
It's like the Barry Diller Interactive Corp approach, which worked very well there.
It's a similar approach. Usually big corporations tend to buy new assets and then play with the toy until it's dead. Implement the bureaucracy of headquarters, and headquarters knows everything better and so on. We know this stuff. Things are slower, more bureaucratic, more costly, and most importantly, people are not motivated anymore. And we said we cannot do that. And we have really said, okay, our integration approach is we provide a toolbox. So Axel Springer has a toolbox there. There's content you can use, there's cross-promotion you can use, there's marketing power you can use, there's IT know-how you can use, there's infrastructure for international operations, there is sales infrastructure, and so on. So take the tools that you need in order to drive your business better, but you don't need to. As long as you are meeting budget, we leave you alone. Here are the tools, take them if you want. This old principle, you can push a spaghetti over the table, you have to pull it, yeah? So we had to make sure that people were pulling the spaghetti. And that worked, and with that we have created a certain track record and credibility that the companies that we are buying are really going their own way, and that entrepreneurs remain in the company. And some of the founders that wanted to exit after 3 years asked us to prolong the contracts and the arrangements in order to stay in the company, because it's still fun. Perhaps here and there is even more fun and more successful in this combination of the Springer family.
Well, I feel very glad listening to all this, because it does make a lot of sense. And I feel very glad because today is also a day where we want to make an announcement. And the announcement is, maybe one or the other has already heard about it, but NOAH is coming to Germany. NOAH is coming to Berlin. And our partner for this important project is Axel Springer, which, yeah, for many, many reasons was for us a logical partner, based in Berlin. They really understand digital, and the most important is they're driven. They're ambitious, which was the word Mike Lynch used this morning. So we are very proud to announce NOAH Berlin, the first. And I remember a little anecdote. I was in Berlin and I met Madame Merkel for one time, and somebody told her, that's a guy who does this conference where all the Germans go to in London. And she looked at me and said, why don't you bring NOAH to Berlin? And I said to her, because Berlin is coming to NOAH. Today, we reversed this decision and we're announcing NOAH Berlin. And you may ask, what's the difference between London? I mean, one difference is it's in June, which is much nicer than London in autumn. But a much more important differentiator is, while London is all about connecting capital with great companies, Berlin will be connecting the old economy with the new economy. And I think Axel Springer is, especially from that perspective, the greatest partner to have, because you manage to attract young talent, digital startups who you bring old-fashioned or traditional competence to, And that's exactly what we are trying to achieve with NOAH Berlin. So you will have, across all the verticals, healthcare, automotive, construction, finance, you will have the incumbent leaders, and you have their new projects, and then you have the new startups in the spaces. So we launched ticket sales in January, by the way. So thank you very much, Mathias. Maybe you should have the last word as our new partner. Tell us about Berlin and the ecosystem, and also why you are behind NOAH Berlin.
Well, first of all, I'm super happy about this partnership because we simply think at Axel Springer that NOAH is the #1 conference for digital entrepreneurs and investors, and we believe that the networking in this ecosystem is super important, and you have created the best formula, and we are simply proud to be your partner and to create something unique in Berlin, which will be, of course, based on the success factors of NOAH as you know it, but we may add some other elements and we may benefit from certain things that Berlin can provide as a city. Of course, it's not financially, not even close to the importance of London, but on the other hand, if you look to the next generation, to the very young generation of startup entrepreneurs, I think Berlin is worldwide, next to Israel and Silicon Valley, one of the most fascinating places that attracts a lot of creative talent, based on very simple factors like very low rents, so you can have office space for very low costs. But also it has to do with the lifestyle in Berlin, with a very hedonistic, interesting lifestyle, the cultural life, the club life in Berlin, and these factors also play a role, and it attracts new talent. And I think that should also inspire NOAH in order to be, very cutting edge and forward-looking.
It's quite interesting. I think Berlin grew up for NOAH because the companies we are like in our day-to-day banking job meeting are grown up, they're becoming profitable, the entrepreneurs becoming more down to earth, more humble. And then also we grew up for Berlin because for us to go to Berlin is as big of an investment as opening another floor downstairs, in case you haven't seen it yet. So we have not only the ambition, but I think we have the healthy understanding that we won't fail. So we are excited to go and be ready for Berlin, and we will make it another great conference. Mathias, I'm excited. Thank you so much for being here today.